Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would talk to you guys a little bit about really the simplest way to get really strong. And this might be controversial, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. And that's to just get as big as you possibly can in terms of muscle mass, get as big as you can, and to practice doing 1 rep maxes. Now, that's actually very simple, and it makes a lot of sense when you understand performance and strength and how to develop strength and everything else, and how what we know, even based upon research, tends to be the case of how people get really strong when you look at it in a lab, or who's the strongest people. Size equals strength. Size equals strength. And when I make that statement, I don't necessarily mean size at all cost. I'm not saying that size that isn't muscle mass is going to help you, because that's one of the things that people forget. When you look at a lot of bodybuilders, people do forget not only is there a PED component to that, which can skew the stuff a little bit, but we're also dealing with a lot of fake muscle. Okay, you need to understand that. A lot of times what you think is pure muscle on a bodybuilder is not. They use large amounts of site enhancement, including even using their anabolics as directly as site enhancement oil. Like, people have brought that up and they're like, well, what about synthol? Is that what you mean by CEO? I'm like, no, just even the amount of stuff that they pen as oil on a weekly basis oftentimes turns into site enhancement oil. It turns into it on its own. So they just use it localized. So a lot of that muscle that you think of is just oil and scar tissue and everything else that's accumulated. That's part of it. You also have to factor in implants, things like that. Or the fact that sometimes maybe they're not as big as you think they are. It's just that they're short and thick and use tons of stuff. So maybe their total lean body mass might be less than you think it is at times, compared to someone who's just taller and bigger. It may be at a higher body fat. But you know what? They're all still generally strong if they actually practice lifting heavy. Because what people need to remember, sometimes it gets pointed out, well, guys who use a bunch of stuff, they aren't strong pound for pound always. And that's also true. A lot of bodybuilders aren't. People who've abused copious amounts of substances are not pound for pound strong, oftentimes as a result of that, because it gives you less strength per unit of muscle, depending upon what people put into their bodies and how they achieve it. Some substances don't seem to increase strength significantly at all, but they make guys bigger. But you know what? They still get stronger. It's just that for the 20 pounds of muscle they gain, they don't gain as much strength as you would expect from 20 pounds of muscle gain. They still gain strength. So that rule even applies to those guys. But let's step back away from that world and look at it. You know, the size equals strength. If you're trying to get as strong as you possibly can, you need to be focusing on hypertrophy. Now, I would say, obviously, that we need to focus on hypertrophy on your weakest muscle groups, because size equals strength. If your triceps are limiting your general upper body strength on all your pressing, you should probably do a bunch of tricep work. You see me doing there. Doing a bunch of sets of 10 on close grip bench press. It's not uncommon for me to do 20, 30 sets of 10 for my triceps on up to 4 different exercises every week. All right, everything from big movements like this to various dips and floor presses to even chain extensions or band extensions or whatever. Same thing, if your hamstrings are holding you back, throw a ton of training volume at them. Build up your weak links. But the same thing applies to general hypertrophy. If you just get as big as you can and thick, and you get big everywhere, you're probably going to have a lot of strength potential. That's not a controversial statement. We know that. Every lab study that's ever looked at it has found that most of your strength comes from your lean muscle mass, the majority of your strength potential. The reason some guys are stronger than others has to do with leverages, skeletons, height. Usually a guy who's extremely strong pound for pound, they're usually really short. And it's because it takes less force to move away to shorter distance. They have shorter moment arms, and so a given amount of muscle in them will produce more weight being moved. It doesn't mean that their muscles are generating more force. Their muscle tissue generates a similar amount of force to other people. They're just able to use it in better levers because they're moving weights a shorter distance and shorter arms and legs sometimes, so a little bit better leverages, right? But they still have to build the muscle to lift it. Just that they might only have to gain 10 pounds of extra muscle to reach a certain strength level, whereas you might have to gain 15 or 20 if you're a lot taller, longer arms and legs. Right? That's all it means. They still have to follow the size equals strength thing, and in fact, if we normalize it for height, things like the barbell squat, a DEXA scan, of someone can get you a real good idea of what their max squat is. It actually can get it fairly close. There's multiple PhDs involved in studies confirming that. It can give you a real good idea. It can get you in the ballpark of their squat max, just a DEXA scan. That's how important body composition and height and things are to it. So what I would say is just get as much muscle as you can. Now, if you want good relative strength, though, what I would say is don't abuse copious amounts of certain anabolics, and maybe, you might not even want to dabble in that world at all. It might be a good idea to stay clean. If you want good relative strength, just focus on maximizing your muscle growth, and you're going to have to get leaner probably if you want pound for pound, right? In other words, you want to be the shortest, leanest guy in a weight class, ideally. You'll probably win. Body composition, muscle mass matter. But if a person just wants to get brutally strong, they could just pack on some extra body fat. You know what? Size still helps there. A lot of lifts get a lot stronger even from body fat gain. Not all of them, but some of them do. So that's an option. I'm not saying I'd recommend it, but it would work. But generally speaking, muscle mass. Get as big as you can and as thick as you can with no weak links anywhere in your body. That means you can't let anything be a weak link. Your hamstrings, your erectors, your triceps, nothing. You can't have weak links. Get everything big, and you'll get stronger. And practice maxes. Because maximum strength, again, the potential depending upon hypertrophy, is also dependent upon how can you actualize it. Can you lift big, heavy weights? That's a skill. There is a skill associated with lifting heavy weights. And when I say a skill, I don't mean it's a skill that takes millions of hours to develop. I'm not talking about that type of always athletic skill that people think of. It's still a low skill, but it has to be practiced. Train maxes. Notice I didn't say train specific lifts. I don't necessarily do that. A lot of people who follow the systems I follow don't. Just get good at maxing out. I don't care what lifts you do it on. If you practice maxing out on a wide variety of big movements, you're going to get good at maxing out. You're going to get good at actualizing your maximum strength potential, because that's what strength is. And I don't care what environment you're measuring it in, we know strength is a production of force against an external object. That could be a push against somebody on a playing field. And you know what? Someone who's practiced pushing against various things with maximum force, not their 10 rep max, but their all out 1 rep max, that person's going to be able to shove you harder. They're going to be stronger. So this applies to athletes. It applies to athletes too, and that's something people forget. You'll see people from the bodybuilding type world who will talk about training clients and everything, and they'll say, I never max. I don't have my clients max. You can tell they don't come from a sports background, because everyone who grows up playing sports in the weight room, they know the importance of maxing out. They know the importance of maxing out. You got to lift maximum weights to develop maximum force. You have to. It's common in high school football rooms for guys to be maxing out all the time. It's normal. Tons of strength conditioning charts are built around 1 rep maxes. 1 rep maxes are an accepted ethical testing protocol in the United States for exercise science studies. There are plenty of studies out there, hundreds of studies that have been done to where they're having clients max every week or every month. Maxing out regularly is part of the study. You see where their 1 rep max is. Right? It's normal. It's only the weird little bodybuilding fetish world has decided that it's not. Everyone else does it. It's not a problem. Max out, because it will carry over to other stuff. Any environment in which you need maximum strength, I don't care whether it's lifting a barbell in a competition or pushing something or grabbing something or pulling it. If you need to use maximum force, you need to have practiced exerting maximum force. You need to have that skill. But you know what? If we were to narrow it down to the 2 biggest factors, and I'm not saying speed strength doesn't matter. I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing the dynamic stuff and all this other stuff or conditioning. We should. What I am saying is that those are your 2 biggest factors. Hypertrophy. And I mean hypertrophy on your frame. I'm not talking about comparing yourself to someone else with better leverages to you, because we know that matters. I'm talking about on your frame. If you want to get as strong as you possibly can, because you're not going to have surgery to change your skeleton, I would hope, is for you to stack as much muscle mass as you can on your frame. Now, preferably in the right places, but any muscle is going to help you be stronger, as long as you're reasonably proportionate with it. and you need to practice maxing out. All right, that's it. That's all you need to do, and you will get brutally strong. That's actually the simplistic secret to it. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.